Good evening, Mountaineers. Welcome to our Pathways of Purpose virtual conversation. My name is Jeff Coyle. I'm the Director of Volunteer Engagement here at the WVU Alumni Association. I'm so excited for this conversation, which is all about alumni stories that began right here at West Virginia University. And this week at WVU, we're celebrating our first ever Week of Purpose. So this conversation will be centered around just that. Joining me tonight are two WVU graduates who have gone on to enjoy great success in their respective career fields. And for each of them, the path to where they are now was really sparked during their time here in Morgantown. Nisha Sangavi is a 2008 graduate, and she's now the owner and president of UG Apparel and Chickadee, which can both be found at more than 1,000 retailers across the country. And they hold contracts with more than 250 universities, including, of course, West Virginia University. She was born in Charleston, West Virginia, and studied finance and economics while setting the tone on WVU game days as a varsity cheerleader. Nisha continues to give back to her home state with an active role in entrepreneurship initiatives throughout West Virginia. Andrew Warsaw is a 2009 graduate, and he currently serves as the Director of Football Operations for the University of Tennessee Volunteers. Prior to his time in Knoxville, Warsaw worked for the National Football League, and he was on the staff at programs like Villanova, Arizona, and Mississippi State over an 11-year career. In his role at Tennessee, Warsaw manages the football program's budget, he coordinates travel, and he oversees the day-to-day operations within the football team's facilities. And his first experience in college football happened right here with the Mountaineers as a student manager for the 2007 Fiesta Bowl team and the 2008 Meineke Car Care Bowl team. Now, that's just a brief introduction of today's guests, but I'd love to have them both come on and give an opportunity to them to talk more about their day-to-day as it relates to their careers. So Nisha and Andrew, we're bringing you on screen now. Welcome.
Hi.
Thanks. Go ahead, and Nisha, I'll give you the floor first. Just give us an introduction. Tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Sure. I'm the CEO of a women's fashion apparel company, and we have two brands. One is called UG Apparel, and the other is called Chickadee. The idea for UG Apparel I actually had while I was a varsity cheerleader at WVU from 2005 to 2008. And I was fully immersed in, WVU fandom. And, that's really where I came up with the idea. So now fast forward about 14 years later, I started that company immediately after I graduated. So now 14 years later, I grew the company from being just me working out of my parents' garage and trying to have this clothing brand to now having about 35 employees, 2 locations, and having our clothing brand in over 1,000 retailers across the U.S. So my role in the company, I'm the CEO, and we design and manufacture all of our own clothing. So my job and what I do on a day-to-day basis is to really keep the company going and running. We have a design department that creates all of our fashions that we want to put into the market. They're constantly researching trends. We have an operations department that processes all of our orders and makes sure that the product goes out to all the retailers. And then we have a sales team. So I manage all of that and try to keep all the departments up and running and working together and putting out, all kinds of fires, but also celebrating all the successes that we have.
Yeah, I think there are probably people watching back home right now who are like, I have some of that gear. I had no idea that it began right here at West Virginia. So I think that's awesome. Thank you so much, Nisha. Andrew, same thing to you. Just give us an idea of what you're up to at Tennessee.
Yeah. First and foremost, thanks for having me be a part of this. I appreciate being able to share my story to all the fellow Mountaineers that are out there. But currently the Director of Football Operations here at the University of Tennessee. This is actually going to be year 16 for me of working in football. So season 16, as you stated, it all started down in Morgantown, West Virginia, with the Mountaineers. And over the past 16 seasons, I've been a part of, maybe 10 different football programs and the National Football League. And over the past 5 years, been here in the SEC, 3 at Tennessee and 2 at Mississippi State. But from a personal standpoint, what really started back home in Morgantown, you could say, is my relationship with my wife, Ashley. We met back at West Virginia, and she's been with me throughout this whole journey of states and traveling and moving our family all across this great country. But we have 3 little kids now, Aiden, Landon, and Eli. So we're very fortunate to have 3 wonderful children. And all this is here because of the time at West Virginia. And if it wasn't for that, we won't be where we are today. So as you said, I run the day-to-day operations here at Tennessee. We do manage the overall budget, the operating and recruiting budget, which is pretty high. And we also handle team travel and all the day-to-day operations that go on here for Coach Heupel and his staff, and also serve as the liaison to the SEC office, as well as our administration with athletic director Danny White. So,
yeah, that's awesome. And we appreciate you taking the time today, because I know, I mean, it's always a busy time, but especially during football season down there in Knoxville.
Yeah.
So, as I said at the – oh, go ahead.
No, yeah, we got the Gators. So Mountaineers got a big one to start.
They got the Gators.
You
SEC play, always a big deal. So as I mentioned at the start of the program, it's the celebration of our week of purpose. And so we're celebrating purpose and self-discovery here on campus, which I'm sure each of you have, your own story to tell when it comes to that. So in what ways did each of you really start to find yourselves while you were here at WVU? And how did those experiences shape the person that you are today? I'd love to hear from both of you. Let's go ahead and start with you, Andrew.
Yeah. Kind of understanding, having the mindset of what I wanted to do in college. West Virginia gave me the opportunity to really take advantage of what was there. If it wasn't honestly for our host here on this call, get me into the West Virginia football program as a student manager, I also don't know if I'd be sitting where I am today. So much appreciated there, but understanding what I wanted to do, kind of how I wanted my career, and how West Virginia was going to help me get there. Being able to discover that early on was huge, and being given the opportunities there at West Virginia to be a part of that football program, be a part of that athletic department. And it's a real high level to do it at a place like West Virginia, especially back in, 07, 08, during that time where, Mountaineer football was the top of the top. You were competing for national championships, and being able to really take that experience as my first experience of working in football gave me a true appreciation for how you run a program, how kids are coached, how the athletic department supports their football program. And there's no better fan base or community out there than Morgantown, West Virginia, and those fans. So, being a part of that program and the height of it was truly an amazing experience. And it's something that still resonates with me today, being here at Tennessee, because it's very, very similar to how things are in Morgantown, as it being a football school. But the football experience was one thing. The education was the other one, right? I was an MDS guy. I did that because it gave me opportunities to learn business, learn communications, learn sports management, tie all 3 together, as well as the experience I was getting from the football side of things. So it really helped shape me who I was, to understand how to communicate to people, to understand the business part of things and running a budget, and then understand the football part of it. So I took advantage of my time there early on, because I knew with the opportunity that my parents gave me to get me to go to school there and help fund it and support you throughout it, you had to take advantage of that opportunity. And that's what I did. And I would say a wife, 3 kids, and 10 jobs in football later, I think it paid off.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned our connection as having been student managers for the football team at the same time. sharing the field with us back then. Nisha, you were on the field for all those same games that we were. A great time to be around the football program as you were with the cheerleading squad. But the same question to you. The ways that your experiences here on campus really did ultimately shape who you are today.
Yeah, I was definitely the student that had no idea what I wanted to do. Even in high school, when I decided to come to WVU, I didn't know at all what major I should choose. And my dad actually came from India to go to WVU for engineering school. So I just wrote into the application, engineering. I'll go to school as an engineering major. And I got accepted, and I actually got a scholarship and thought, okay, I'm going to become an engineer. Sure. And then I talked to my dad and I realized what an engineer does. And I realized, well, I don't want to do that. So then I changed my major, and I was actually pre-med for 2.5 years. I'm Indian, and a lot of times in our culture, it's kind of defined your success as either you become a doctor or an engineer. And that's kind of the old fashioned way. So I just thought, okay, if I'm not going to be an engineer, I think I have to be a doctor. And I actually did pre-med at WVU for 2 years. I got all my prerequisites with biology and chemistry. And I realized about 2 years in that I didn't want to be a doctor. But all this time I was a cheerleader at WVU. And like, as we all know, those were really awesome years to be a part of the cheerleading program. And I got to travel all across the US with the football and the basketball team. And I'm a born and raised West Virginian. I'm a diehard Mountaineer fan. And I really got to immerse myself in West Virginia fandom and like look up in the stands and see other people that were so passionate about Mountaineer football, basketball, sports, everything. And it started to put this, idea in my head about what is the business around this. And then when I realized that I didn't want to do pre-med, I thought I'll just go into business school, because I can, buy some time to figure out what it is that I want to do. I was pretty good at math, so I said, I'll do finance. And that's what I ended up graduating with, was a degree with finance and economics. But also while I was in the business school, I got an opportunity to be in the business plan competition with a friend of mine who was the idea was something in the whitewater rafting industry. So something completely, unrelated to what I do now, but being in the business school, I really started to find my home. And particularly the business plan competition that WVU hosts really shaped a lot of me understanding what an entrepreneur is and realizing that that's who I've always been. The word entrepreneur wasn't as buzzy then as it is now. And I didn't really know what an entrepreneur was. But what I found at WVU was that I wanted to be in control of my own destiny. I wanted to create a path for myself and take something from nothing and build it into something. But I had no idea what that was going to be. But really finding that home in the business school put little seeds in my head that I then took with me as soon as I graduated to create my company.
Yeah, and certainly we can see what those seeds grew into as your career has gone on from here at WVU. To our audience who are watching at home, if you've got any questions that you'd like to direct to Nisha and Andrew, we certainly encourage you to drop those in the comment section, and we'll get to them a little bit later on in the program. A lot of times when our grads think back to their time in Morgantown, they're not necessarily thinking about the academics that will stand out as their lasting memories. And we do have a program on campus that's called Project 168. The idea is that it specifically highlights opportunities that students have during their college career that take place outside of the classroom. So for each of you, you were involved on campus in ways that I'm sure were fulfilling at a social and personal level, but also something that then bled into your professional pursuits. Nisha, what were some of those experiences for you that you filled your time with that maybe weren't part of, the 15 or 20 credit hours that you took each semester?
Yeah, definitely, being a cheerleader was a large part of my week. We had practice 3 times a week. And then, of course, we would travel for the football and basketball games. But then also the business plan competition. That was something that went on for 6 months if you made it through each round. And we actually were a finalist. We made it to the top 3. So that tied up my entire, I would say, my senior year, a good portion of it. But also I took opportunities to travel abroad when I could. While I was in the business school, I enrolled in a class that was called the Economies of Eastern Europe. And a part of that class was taking a trip to Poland. So I specifically signed up for that class because of that trip and wanting to, take myself away from WVU for 10 days. I actually missed an opportunity during that time because I think we made it to the Big East tournament, or I forget, it was maybe a portion of the NCAA tournament that I ended up missing to go on this trip. But looking back, I mean, going on that trip really opened up a lot to me because I had never been abroad, not on a family vacation, but with other students. And after I left WVU, I intentionally wanted to look for a career that would take me abroad. And I eventually worked for Puma also at their headquarters in Germany for a year because of that trip that I had taken while I was in Morgantown.
That's awesome. Same thing to you, Andrew. The things that you did outside of the classroom. I know you've gotten into a bunch of them just with the football experience, but in what ways, were you involved that weren't necessarily the things that you experienced as part of enrollment in classes at WVU?
Yeah, for sure. First, it was football, right? That was very demanding from a time standpoint. But a great experience and learning a lot there, especially since that was the profession that I was going to go follow. But I was also a member of the Phi Sigma Kappa fraternity. So I was active in the Greek life. And I know that there's a fun part of that, of course. But there's also a giving back, a community service part of that as well. And being able to partake in a lot of different fraternity sorority events that just helped Morgantown in general. Those were all great experiences too. It got you to meet some more local people and break out of the football shell a little bit and deal with a group of students that, weren't student athletes and were there. And some of them, were friends that you had in your classes, and you worked on projects with them. And it built a whole other network for you. And it was just a great experience being a part of Greek life there. Because Greek life at West Virginia is a huge deal. And you did a lot of cool things to help the community there. And it was just a good outlet from the academic part, the football part, for me to be able to go be a part of that and meet a bunch of people and build relationships with people that, I still have today.
Yeah, here on campus, it's not just this week for Week of Purpose. It's really something that we're talking about quite a bit these days. And I don't know if as you two were going through your time at WVU, were you thinking of what is your purpose in that kind of manner? But I think personally that thinking about it that way can seem fairly daunting. There are so many paths that our lives can take, and then trying to really narrow it down and choose the one or the handful that you were meant to pursue. That's asking a lot of anybody, much less, an 18 to 22-year-old student going through college. So what sort of advice, and we'll start with you, Andrew, what sort of advice would you give if there's a student watching today who's trying to decide as they continue to explore which of these paths is the one that they'd like to take?
Yeah, take advantage of the opportunities that West Virginia offers, right? There's a great support system there, whether it's academics, athletics, Greek life, whatever it may be. Take advantage of those. You get one shot at college, and working in higher ed right now, and you're able to see these kids come into these programs. And that's the one thing you want to tell them is take advantage of the experience, the college experience. Football is great. It's always going to be there, but the college experience is something that's going to come and go. And take advantage of the resources that are offered. Participate in things that maybe you necessarily wouldn't. Try to give back to the community, because that's always self-fulfilling in the end. So that's my advice, is just really take advantage of the time and the place and the people. because that's all really important. The people of West Virginia, I mean, there's no better group out there, and they will do whatever it takes to help you achieve whatever goals, whatever dreams you might have. So it's just taking advantage of the opportunity and of the now.
Awesome. And same thing for you, Nisha, the advice that you give to somebody who's, in that part of your life that we've been talking about, for you, but they're in the middle of it right now.
Sure. I mean, honestly, for a lot of my time at WVU, I felt lost because I couldn't pick a major and I couldn't figure out what it was that I wanted to do. And I felt like I was surrounded by my friends and a lot of people that were so sure, of what degrees that they wanted to do and what their life after college was going to be like, that I felt, honestly left behind. And Andrew really hit the nail on the head there about the college experience, because when I look back, I befriended a lot of people that, maybe I normally wouldn't have been friends with, or that didn't have the same kind of upbringing of me, or, that came from different parts of the US. I mean, WVU has such a diverse student population, so all of a sudden I was around city kids, country kids, people from West Virginia, people from all over the country. And that really helped me understand more who I was. And so the takeaway that I have from my experience is that choosing a major isn't really your end all. And I think that's what a lot of students feel in college, that, oh my gosh, I chose this major and now I have to go on this path and that's it. But it's really a starting point for you. And, coupling your academics, making that more of a foundation, but then also what you take away from the social aspects and the whole college experience, figuring out who you are, what kind of person you want to be, that lines up things for you that, when you first graduate, it might not make sense, but it takes you on that path to where you eventually are going to go.
Yeah, I realized that the direction I was going to take this question next is basically just the advice that you wish that you had when you were in college. But, hindsight's 2020. We can all look back and say, having lived the experience, here's what our advice is now. But are there any sort of lessons that you feel like you learned during your time at WVU, whether easily or maybe the hard way, that you've taken with you and you've incorporated into your life and your career today? We'll start with you, Nisha.
I think, being a cheerleader, I got to experience, we weren't really athletes. We weren't completely considered in the athletic demographic, but we kind of were. So I really got to understand, how the world looks at athletes and, being a part of that whole thing. So it was challenging to balance, having practice plus my student life, plus wanting to do the social things that I wanted to do in college. And I often, stressed myself out on the weekends, and I felt like I had FOMO because my friends were tailgating, but instead I had to be up at 6 a.m., to be at the field. But that really helped me, understand time management and how to align my priorities. So I wish I wouldn't have been so hard on myself while I was in college and feeling like I was missing out, because at the same time, I was getting to experience something that a lot of people didn't. And that's very unique.
I love that you used the term FOMO, because I feel like back then that wasn't even necessarily something that we knew and acknowledged, just because of, how prevalent everything is on social media these days, and that ability to sort of check in on what everybody's doing around campus. Same thing for you, Andrew, the lessons that you learned, during your time here at WVU that have really been something that you've incorporated going forward.
Yeah. Learning how to walk down hills when they're icy, or drive down hills when they're icy. I would say that's a skill that I've taken with me. Lessons I've learned, it was just really observing. I try to be so observant in everything that I was doing back then, especially as a student manager with the football program. During a time where the athletic department really went through a huge change, a head coaching change that kind of rocked Morgantown, to kind of be in the building, but also kind of take it from the outside and observe and just see how all that went. that's been vital for me professionally to understand, the business aspect of college athletics and the way the student athletes handled it and the way the community handled it, and to just see the magnitude of those type of situations that arise within college athletics. So, it was really learn it and just take it all in and just have it in the back of your mind if you ever had to fall back. And it helped me going to smaller schools like Villanova and University of Pennsylvania and the United States Merchant Marine Academy and Fordham, and take just how we did things back at West Virginia and try to, replicate it at a different place where you had to be a little bit more creative. So, yeah, there were a lot of things that I took away from my time there. And there is, as Nisha put it, you sacrificed a lot being a cheerleader, working in football. You weren't able to be at tailgates. I was trying to be a part of a frat. I was trying to be a good boyfriend at the time that was really trying to secure this young lady down. I accomplished that, but and that took a lot of sacrificing time with her, but it was trying to really have enough time for every single thing that you were involved in and give it your all. It was hard, but I wouldn't have changed anything. And I'm very appreciative for the lessons that I took away with me from West Virginia.
That's awesome. Interesting that you mentioned, sort of those differences between being at a high Power 5 level program compared to some of the other stops that you've had. For each of you, you've had a chance in your careers to really work with different brands at so many different institutions across the country. We take so much pride in the Flying WV and, in the brand of being a Mountaineer and part of the Mountaineer family, Mountaineer Nation, all of that. But as you've gone through your careers and you've learned more about other universities, whether, right there on the inside as part of the football program or working with their licensing department to see, different marks and stuff like that. What stands out about WVU? And just because you just brought it up, Andrew, we'll start with you, but, what do you think makes your alma mater and being a Mountaineer so special?
There's just a sense of Mountaineer pride. It's a real thing. I think in the video piece that hit on this before, seeing the Flying WV, doesn't matter where you are, someone's always going to come up to you and ask you, hey, did you go to school there? What's the story behind wearing that? And that's a powerful thing. It's probably one of the strongest brands I've ever been a part of in college athletics. And I got the Power T behind me, which is a close rival to it. But that West Virginia logo, that there's nothing like it. And that community of Morgantown and everything that it stands for. It is such a college town that is prideful. It's important to them. It's special. The university is Morgantown, right? I'm in a place in Knoxville. There's tons of stuff out these windows here, right? It's not just the University of Tennessee, but in Morgantown, West Virginia University, that's it. And there is a crazy amount of pride that goes with that. And it is second to none in a college community.
Nisha, how about you?
Yeah, Andrew definitely nailed it. I think this sense of community and family is so strong. I've traveled the world and I've been in so many places. This just happened to me actually last week. I landed in the Austin airport. I live in Austin, Texas. And there was a guy wearing a West Virginia polo. And without even thinking, both of us never seen each other in our life. We both say, hey, because I was wearing a West Virginia sweatshirt. And he says right away to me, hey, how are you? And without even hesitating, we just started a conversation. And hey, what are you doing in Austin? It would be great. I'll go to these places. I had that experience also in Germany, where walking down a street, a guy was wearing a West Virginia hat, and I just said something to him, and we have mutual friends. We find out so and so, and I don't think that really happens as much with other colleges, and it definitely does, but not that sense where, it might be just like a, hey, what's up? Cool. Nice sweatshirt. But with Mountaineer fans, it goes so much deeper. It really has that deep connection where you do feel like family. You almost have that organic sense of, this guy's my friend. Let me take care of him, or let me make sure he knows where he's at. And that's just something that I haven't experienced working with over, 300 colleges that we work with. I haven't really come across another college that seems to have that kind of community sense.
Yeah, I think anybody watching, all of us here on this meeting right here, we can think back to a time that we've walked past somebody, as you said, in the airport or somewhere far from West Virginia, and there's like a Let's Go Mountaineers, or you're sitting anywhere in the world and they're playing Country Roads, and the way that it just makes you think back, to your time at WVU, no matter how long it's been since you were actually experiencing as a student. I think definitely we could sit here and keep on talking all night, but I want to make sure that we open it up and get a chance to hear from our audience a little bit as well. So I'm going to take a look here at some of the questions that we've had from those who are tuning in tonight. We've gone through a lot of talk about advice, but the first question that we've got is, do you have any advice for someone who is looking to find purpose in their current career? So either of you can take that.
Yeah, if you're looking for purpose, in your current career, I've always been big on, to me, it feels like I haven't worked a day in my life. It's a lifestyle. I'm sure Nisha could say the same thing. It really is. The purpose finds you, I think. If you know what you want and you know something that you love and you go after it and start working in it, it just doesn't become work. It just becomes a lifestyle, and you accept it. It accepts you, and that's what your life becomes.
Nisha?
Yeah, I agree. I think that, during the pandemic, a lot of people have started to question, what they're doing and how they want to spend their time. And unfortunately, working is, a big piece of that. I don't think there's anybody that can truly say that I love to work. Everybody I'd love to not work and just have, $1 billion. But I think we have two types of people. There are people that can say that they love what they do and they have a passion that doesn't feel like work. But for other people, I think it's trying to compartmentalize too, like what is your work doesn't have to be completely who you are if you don't want that. And how do you then fill your time with other things that do fulfill you, whether it's community service or having hobbies and all that. And, figuring out which person do you want to be? Because for me as an entrepreneur, it is a lifestyle. I can't differentiate between my personal life and my work life. It's, kind of all mixed up. And I think sometimes I envy people that can, leave the office at 5 and turn it off and go on and, not think about work till the next day. So I really think it's, figuring out which kind of person do you want to be and, committing to it.
Certainly neither of you are people who, when 5 o'clock hits, that's the end of your workday. That's not at all what the structure of your day is like.
It's not.
Nisha, first of all, if you ever do find out the way to just get $1 billion, please, we're going to have another one of these calls and just make sure that we all get the secret to it.
That's it.
This next question is something that I feel like I want to take notes myself. And Nisha, we'll start with you if you're up for it. But the question is, do you have any daily routines or structure that you believe set you up for success for the rest of the day?
Definitely. I think, in my role, I'm bouncing between so many different topics. It could be finance, or it could be design, or it could be sales. It's like, very scattered. And I often have a difficult time making sure that I, can accomplish all the things that I want to accomplish, but keep projects moving. And for me, it's honestly making a list. I have to make a handwritten to-do list every day. There's something about actually handwriting something down that sets me off on my day to say, okay, I made my list of things that I want to do for the day, but also marking them off. gives me a great sense of accomplishment, because I think a lot of us, we have so many projects. It's not like you just finish it today. You know, they go on for a season, for a year, for whatever. And you kind of get in this feeling where it's never ending. There's always something popping up. So I try to take the small successes as I get them. And, you know, whether it's today, hey, I emailed, you know, the 5 people that have been waiting to hear back from me, or, you know, we marked off a big project that we've been working on for 6 months, you know, making that checkbox and giving myself that feeling of accomplishing it really helps me on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, that's awesome. How about you, Andrew?
Yeah. For me, you know, this is something that actually hits close to home here, because this is something that's resonated with me ever since I believe it was a spring practice in 2009 with Coach Stewart. He told the team a story about never hitting the snooze button. I think it was something that Tiger Woods came up with. But when that alarm goes off, you get up and you go and you seize the day. I don't know, for some reason, I think about that post-practice talk all the time, and it just resonates with me. When my alarm goes off in the morning, if my kid doesn't wake me up before that, it's go time. And it's you get up, you have your coffee, and just attack the day. And I don't know, there's just something about that story. It's just always been in the back of my mind. It's just something that I always think about, and that's how I start my day.
I didn't know which direction you were going to take that, but I feel oftentimes during my day, and maybe this goes back to some of that finding your purpose, I will think about him saying, Coach Stewart saying to stop and smell the roses. Yep. And I know obviously he's not like the person who created that concept, but I always think about that being something that he said during the Fiesta Bowl season. Yep. So glad to know that other people take some of those words of wisdom with them going forward.
Absolutely.
Next question. I am curious, because neither of you have been on campus as a student in a while. So I'd love to hear, you know, do these places even exist? But the next question is, what is your favorite spot on campus? And we're talking about West Virginia University's campus, just in case there's any confusion.
For me, now that I really think about it, I have a couple. You know, on the downtown campus, I would say definitely in front of the library. I loved sitting in front of the library and the mountain lair and doing my people watching, you know, and in between classes, that's really where you see what's happening day to day. Where's everybody going? And of course, one of my other favorite spots is the stadium. I loved, as a cheerleader, kind of getting to go into places that people often don't see. One of them is the tunnel. You know, coming out of the tunnel every football game, that to me was one of my favorite places. I mean, you have this anticipation that's building up. You have a crowd, a stadium, you know, full of, I think, 60,000 people, and the marching band. That on every Saturday that, you know, that I cheered, that was a game, that was one of my favorite things that I looked forward to.
Awesome. Andrew?
I was going a complete different direction with this one, where I was going to say the back door, you know, Kegler's and Ben Willie's Pizza late at night, or the vintage room. But for me,
relatable to our audience, so that's fine. We can take it in whatever direction.
All great spots, but you know, I honestly, I'm going to kind of go a different route here. For me, it was more the Coliseum, right? Because that's where we had our classes. Yeah, I just remember times going there. That's where the athletic department was located. It was such a diverse group, you know, it kind of got you out of the football mix, which was nice. And anytime you had class over there, or just went over to the athletic department in general, I enjoyed that spot. And it's such a unique building, and parking was always a pain there. But those are some of my favorite spots. But yeah, Ben Willie's Pizza, back door. Lazy Lizard, I don't think that's there anymore, but a ton of good spots there on campus.
You just named my regular Thursday night spots, Friday night, Saturday night spots.
Yeah, Tuesday.
I'm getting like somebody in the background saying, "Okay, wrap it up. Let's get them off. We're 41 minutes in, and the conversation has gone off the rails." No, kidding. Obviously, you two have both shown your age by naming some of the places that you just did that do not exist under those names in Morgantown anymore.
If you get a chance to come back and visit us, for homecoming or sometime soon, you can see what downtown Morgantown is looking like, and catch some of the new buildings on campus that are going to be certainly part of the lasting memories for our students, today and for years to come. So that's all the time that we really have for questions. But before I let you guys go, I just wanted to see if there's anything else either of you wanted to chat about, bring up, since here you are getting a chance to talk with an audience of current and former Mountaineers. It's okay if not.
Well, I'm appreciative of the time. I enjoy sharing my story. West Virginia it's such a special place to me because it's really where all of my roots are, right? The foundation for, I would say, everything in my life essentially started there. We're looking at it professionally, personally. It all has roots to Morgantown, West Virginia. The football side of it, the family side of it, with my wife and kids. I mean, none of this would be where I am today or would be if it wasn't for attending West Virginia University and, really seizing that opportunity and taking everything that it offered. So West Virginia, Morgantown will always and forever be home, and will be a special place for the Warsaw family.
Thank you, Andrew. How about you, Nisha?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Even for me, after I graduated, WVU has still been a home for me. As I started my business, the reason that I even have my business is honestly because of WVU. They were the very first trademark and licensing contract that I got. And, I was applying for something that mega companies have, like Nike and Champion. And, I was a no-name person, but they were willing to take a chance on me. And I owe, what we've built so far to WVU, and really particularly still being involved, even though I graduated in 2008, so many of my former professors or, anybody in faculty have still maintained contact with me and have made it clear that they're still here to help me, support me. If there's, any way they can introduce me to somebody or, help me with anything that I'm struggling with. And that has been just amazing to me. Since we're talking about, finding our path, I didn't come from a family that was in the garment and textile industry. I've really just been trying to figure out things on my own as I go. And my WVU family has always made it clear to me that I'm not necessarily alone, and that if they can help me, they will, open up a door or introduce me or just be a sounding board. And just knowing that I have that support for the rest of my life, means everything.
Yeah, that's great. Well, let's go ahead and wrap it up there. For all of our audience who are watching at home, if you didn't get a chance to ask a question, or if you want to know more about Nisha or Andrew, you can find them. For Nisha, you can go online to the websites of the companies that she's been talking about, UG Apparel and Chickadee. You can go online to their websites, which are ugapparel.com and chickadee.com, which is chicka-d.com, as well as their social media accounts. And for Andrew, well, just tune into College Game Day this weekend, because ESPN will be in Knoxville before the game that he'll be a part of this weekend as SEC play is underway against the Florida Gators. So Nisha, Andrew, thank you both so much. I obviously have known you since college. I really appreciate you both coming on with us today, sharing your stories, doing such impressive things, and being able to do it representing the Mountaineers. That certainly makes all of us proud back home in Morgantown. So thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having us.
And to those of you who are watching from home, thank you as well. We're excited to share our alumni stories with you, and we are thrilled to be doing so as part of WVU's first week of Purpose. Of course, our celebration does not end today. Be sure to check out the calendar of events that are coming up the entire week. You can find that online at purpose.wvu.edu. Thanks again for joining us, and have a great night.